6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See what we got. What's this?
Peggy 18.
Is this a new video?
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining the Infinity Ward live stream today. My name is Ashton. I'm the community manager here at the studio, and today we are talking all things animation in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So I have two awesome gentlemen beside me today who work in the animation. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Jason Greenberg. I'm the animation director here at Infinity Ward.
And I'm Rob Miller. I'm the lead AI animator here at IW.
So what exactly do you guys do?
So my job is basically to oversee the entire department. I'm in charge of all the animators on the team. We have at points upwards of 40 animators working on the team. And it's also my responsibility to make sure that we have a cohesive vision for the animation in the game, that everything is working properly and working together across all the different game modes.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I oversee all the AI animations that you see in the single-player campaign. So the guys you shoot at and kill, and then I oversee the zombie animations and also the third-person player animations in multiplayer.
So when it comes to animation, do you guys have any kind of pillars or just bullet points of things that you distribute to the team, or just things that have to happen no matter what?
Yeah, so Infinite Warfare was a pretty big challenge for us. Going into space was a really big thing. We wanted to make sure to keep the game grounded even though we were going into space. So it was really important for us from an animation perspective to support that, and also to support the narrative, which is a huge part of the game. So one of the things we tried to focus on was what we call connection with the player. We wanted to add to the realism of the characters in the game and make sure that when you were playing, you felt like these were real people who are looking at you, talking with you, kind of interacting with you in realistic ways. We didn't want them to be like video game heads.
Right.
We wanted them to feel as real as possible. So that was a big pillar, and we're going to kind of talk about some of the ways that we supported that, not just in AI, but also in some of the other aspects of animation as well.
I think that's really important. I think we've seen a lot of feedback where people have mentioned that they grew relationships with these characters and they felt them, especially with Ethan. So that's really, really cool. So we have a couple of little videos to show you guys. So what's the first one that we have? The Frantic Combat.
Yeah, Frantic. So Frantic is a new feature that we added to our AI animations and single player. And the whole idea with it was the inspiration came from talking to our vets, talking to our consultants. And I wanted to really understand kind of the real human connections that people have when they're in combat. So you have all this training, you go in the battle. What happens when bullets are flying over your head and you need to get to cover as fast as possible? And that was kind of the inspiration behind it. And so we really wanted to make a more stress-filled urgency response, if you will, with an AI. So what you're looking at, this is a proof of concept video that we made about a year and a half ago. And now this shows old combat. So you can see there's not really a great sense of urgency and stress that was involved with it. And so we layered on frantic animations, and we really wanted actors to feel like, uh-oh, a bullet just flew over my head. I have to get to cover as fast as possible. So you can see a lot more sliding in the cover, kind of like suppressed reactions behind cover, and really trying to sell that feeling, that human instinct, if you will, when the line's chasing you on the savannah.
Yeah, you're not casually just walking up to cover. You're kind of in the zone and freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's not solid movements there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was definitely a lot of fun to shoot. We brought in some amazing stunt guys. We just set up a bunch of mats and we're having them run as fast as you can. Like, my direction was always, imagine this is a life or death situation. Run as fast as you possibly can and slide into this piece of cover. And so I'm pretty pleased with the result.
So that also kind of ties into something in the game where the pain system. So when an enemy is getting shot or you're getting shot, there's kind of a different reaction that the animation has when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to take the pain system up another notch. And so you spend a lot of time as a first-person shooter shooting the enemy. And so this is a proof of concept video that we created. This is what the old pain system used to look like. So I'm really proud of what the AI team did. We created another system in which every time you shoot an enemy, you can kind of really play with them, if you will.
Nice.
You shoot them in the arm, they're going to react like they were shot in the arm. You shoot them in the stomach, they're going to immediately react like they were shot in the stomach. We really wanted to kind of give a more kinetic feedback loop for the player to kind of understand every bullet counts in this game.
And is this something, I think people see it more, especially when they go through campaign, and I think even more so when they get into the various modes,
Exactly.
like with specialists and all that stuff. It's taking the cracked helmet off, like you're feeling these reactions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting too because, a lot of this stuff is really subtle, right? Like when we talk about it, it's very detailed, and we're like, oh, you see this individual reaction, you see this thing, but we don't expect every player to notice that. We just expect them to know, hey, this feels a little bit better. They don't necessarily know why, but there's all this thought and effort that we put into it so that you just, as you're playing, you're just like, oh yeah, this feels more natural. This feels like I'm actually shooting somebody. And hopefully it's something that you kind of, it's not as obvious, but you just feel it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Jason, you'd mentioned supporting the narrative in the process and the various ways that it happens. We have another clip showing the walk and talk. So what is that all about?
So the walk and talk system was a solution that we needed because we're spending so much time on the bridge. And it's a simple solution in which we layered on 3 different animations that would always track where the player is. So Salter could kind of be more engaged with the player as you're walking, through points in the level. It was all about selling that interaction, that these are living humans, if you will, in a video game world. And we really wanted to connect with the player in a first-person shooter. And so here's an example of Salter tracking you. This is a proof of concept video we made about a year ago to kind of show off the new technology with the walk and talk system.
So yeah, so no matter where you are,
Okay.
when you're kind of interacting
like
with
story
her in the
mode
level,
stuff. Come on.
she'll look at you. She'll
more
look at you
cool
in a
stuff going
natural
here.
way, so she's not like breaking her gait. She's
All
not
here for the
stopping or
zombies.
anything like that. You can kind of see in this example, you can move wherever you want, and it's still gonna feel like she's connected to you.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something I definitely noticed that's, grown from Call of Duty to Call of Duty to Call of Duty. You see these new systems being brought in, and I absolutely pick up on that kind of stuff. I'm sure you guys see even more details. And someone actually just mentioned in the comments that it just probably takes weeks of work to just make that as smooth as possible and be as flawless for the player. How long do you think it takes to work on a specific scene within the campaign, for example? Is there one scene that was like the
I'll let you go for
hardest?
this one.
Well, there's so many different systems. We have Rob here, so we should kind of focus on the AI stuff. So Rob can maybe talk about how long it took to put together a system like the walk and talk or Pain.
Sure, like the walk and talk system, it's about 3 animations, and the way walk and talk works, it's more logic driven. So it's more. It took less than a week to kind of get that up and running. It's kind of more simplified. Whereas Dynamic Pain was over 600 animations and just being really creative about how we go about
600,
doing
holy
that.
cow,
So
they
we
spent a lot of time.
when we work on something like that took about a month, and that's a pretty fast turnaround time. The AI team did an incredible job pumping out all those animations, and that's about being selective about how do we branch off these animations. If you're shot in the arm and then shot in the leg, how can we make that look realistic? And so there's definitely a lot of sweat equity that's involved, and then you have something working, and then it's like, great, this is working.
us
That last
gamers
10% though is the
video
hardest
games.
part to
A
really
lot of
polish
sweat
that for
equity put
shippable
in these
quality.
games.
Yeah. Some of those systems, though, like we had to build robots from the ground up. We had to build the red state animations that we were talking about from the ground up. Those are hundreds, almost thousands of animations. And with the robots, they had to all be hand keyed. We couldn't put somebody in a mocap suit and just capture a robot.
Right.
So those took years, like
Yeah.
a year and a half,
yeah,
I think, for
absolutely.
the C6 robot.
Wow.
You try something out, it doesn't quite work, so you have to iterate on that. That's the whole concept of animation in video games. It's how fast can you iterate on an idea, and if something doesn't work, because it's all about just catering to that right feel for the final quality.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for joining us.
Thank you.
And
This is
before
fun.
we swap you out, do you have any
Who's
advice
next?
for any future animators out there?
Swapping out next.
Yeah, follow your passion. I mean, just really stick with it. Animation is it's a cutthroat industry to get into, but there's always room for talent. And so the more you practice, the more you just practice on those core skills, the higher the chance of being hired is going to really be. Play games, play systems, and also keep in mind the technology side. The interactive industry is always changing. It's really important to kind of stay ahead of the curve on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much, Rob.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
So we are going to bring in another person. I know a lot of people in the chat are probably excited. You might have seen some of our Instagram stories. We have our lead animator for weapons, Mark DeRitter, who's going to talk to us about the weapon animations and show us some video as well. So pretty exciting. So I guess, what is the View model team and how does that function here with
Oh, they
Infinity
switched
Ward?
up quickly, didn't
Right,
they?
so I'm lead
couldn't
editor of
even
the View
tuck the
model
cord
team,
away.
and by View model, we refer to basically the model within your first-person view. So the player character, your arms, your hands, your weapon. Our primary responsibility for my team is animating player weapons and equipment, but we actually handle a number of first-person systems, like getting in and out of vehicles, piloting the Jackal, like for this game, helmet animations, weapon scanning. Basically, anything that you see the player character do over and over and over again across all 3 game modes, that's our responsibility.
All right, so one of the cool things that we've been seeing a lot of chatter about in the community is the gesture system. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the gesture system was something we got started very early on in the development. We knew right away, pretty much, that we wanted to have this story of Infinite Warfare, the campaign, basically center around Nick Reyes, who you play. You play the main character of the game, and that's a first for us. It's a first for Infinity Ward, and I think to this extent, it's almost a first for the franchise. So not only do you play the main character, but the character has a voice, and he is a captain. So up until this game, anytime we wanted to do anything with the player character other than shooting, reloading, and throwing a grenade, we had to take the control away from the player. We had to drop their weapon, and we'd lock them into a vignette animation. And we still do that, and it's great. But with the narrative requirements of this game, there could be a lot of moments where the story's going on, no combat, and we didn't want to be a fly on the wall. We wanted to be engaged. We wanted to be, talking, emoting, acting, reacting to the environment. And so what the gesture system does for us, without getting too technical, is it allows us to play gesture animation on top of whatever weapon we're holding in our hand. We can keep the gun on screen, we can keep control in the player's hands, and we can bring the player character to life in a way we've never done before. So as you saw in the video here, I don't know if we can hear the video, but he's actually talking to the people using his hands. We don't do that too much. We don't want to overact or overemphasize, but when the moment called for it, we had that available to us to use the hands as like an instrument to amplify the emotion going on within the character that you are portraying.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that this voice that you just hear coming from basically nowhere had a connection and a visual representation in the game. This was the first time that we had a player voice for an Infinity Ward game. So we wanted to do it in a way that players knew where that voice was coming from, that voice was them. So it was really important in these critical moments that if the Reyes character was saying something, then we had an animation that tied to what he was saying, also expressed some of the emotion that we wanted to get out of him. So Mark's team really put a lot of effort into making that happen, and I think it really brings some of the scenes together and really completes them.
Yeah, the gesture system's awesome. I mean, and I think that it's super successful. And for you guys, did it lead into any other new functionality or mechanics that are new to Infinite Warfare?
Totally. So since we got started on it early in the development, it was like a tool in our tool chest now to utilize when it came to solving problems or coming up with new ideas, new mechanics and whatnot, and it became really the backbone. So I have like 3 examples of areas where that came in handy. The first being a new mechanic for single player called Door Peek. And I don't think a lot of people maybe not notice this, but early on in the development of our game, playing the rough levels, we realized there's a lot of doors in this game. You know, not only are there civilian doors, but you've got these big bulkheads. You've got airlocks, which have 2 doors to go through. And up until this game, if we wanted, the only tool we had available to us was to do these vignettes. Gun goes away, control goes away, you go through the door. It's fine, but after a while it gets repetitive. And so we thought, well, why don't we marry the gesture system along with this vignette, and we can have the gun stay on screen as you go through the door. So you can see we open the door, the hand stays on, the gun's on screen, and now you have a choice. You can peek slowly using movable cover and take out the enemies like we're doing here. You could kick the door down like Rambo if you wanted to. Or you can throw equipment in, like a flashbang or grenade, and then let that do its job and come in and clean up. But the idea behind this was, you know, in previous games when you were sort of a voiceless grunt following Price or Hesh or Sandman, you got to see them do all the badass stuff. And now that you're the captain, you should be doing the badass stuff. And so we wanted these moments, you know, to you to feel like you are that Price character. You are the one making the decisions, going through and engaging the next room and making the decision tactically how you'd want to do that.
And some of this actually came from consulting with our military experts. You know, they would talk to us a lot about how they pie a door, and basically this is pieing a door. It's breaking down all the angles very slowly and carefully and cautiously, exploring your way into a room. So it's kind of neat that, like, you know, in talking to these military experts, we were then able to, you know, take what they told us and put it into a game mechanic.
Yeah.
And it's actually really, I think it's one of my favorite things in the game.
Yeah, they really provided a lot of inspiration for us. They told us about how they'd stack up on a door, and they would choose someone to be the one to go through, and they literally called them, I think, the door bitch, you know, and we used that line in the game.
Yeah.
Salter calls one of the charge door bitch. So anyway, they provide
You
a
mean
lot
so
of inspiration.
we just don't open every door with C4 anymore?
No, exactly.
Oh, all right.
Code Breach 2.0.
Yeah, right.
That'd be
So
easier,
you
wouldn't
had mentioned something about the left-handed throwing system.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so, you know, again, early on in development, we're now having some success with the door, starting with door, but with the gesture system. And the MP designer saw what we were doing. And they asked, hey, can you do gestures while, you know, while having the weapon up on screen, fire the weapon? And of course, through door peek, yes, we can do that. And so they asked, well, can we redo how we cook and throw equipment, which has been pretty much the exact same mechanic since COD 1.
That's true.
And so
different
the
this time.
request was try and use your left hand. Keep the weapon on screen so you can fire it and throw the equipment and cook the equipment. Like I said, up
That
until
is
this
cool.
point,
That
you
was a
know,
good
in
idea.
Call of Duty, you would drop your weapon, you pull the pin on the grenade, and you cook it off screen. You get like this floating head, which never feels good from an animation standpoint. And then you throw with your right hand. But you're left vulnerable. And in our multiplayer, particularly this multiplayer, it's very fast. And we wanted the players to have some defenses when deploying equipment.
Makes it
And so we gave it a shot, and as you saw, it turned out pretty well. So you can see he's cooking it, and nice thing is you can actually look at the equipment that you have in your hand while you're cooking it too, and fire while you're throwing it. And I think it feels more fluid too. Pretty happy with how it turned out.
That's awesome. So speaking of multiplayer taunts.
Mm-hmm.
So something we're seeing a lot being used in multiplayer matches. How does the system tie into taunts?
So at the end of the production cycle, we're having all this fun with gestures, and we thought, gosh, you know, what can we do? Can we use gestures to bring personality and creativity into multiplayer? Let the players kind of have fun. And so we created up to 50 or so gestures that using the gesture system, and we had a blast. As animators, this is just so much fun for us. We did everything from thumbs up to more fun ones like you're seeing here. And the real joy for us is to see the video watching. These are clips I found online of people using the gesture system in a very creative way. These clips
cool.
here in particular, I should give a shout out to a YouTuber named DL5 or DL55. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but
You should pronounce
he
it
has
right, Dave.
hilarious
I'll give him a
video
shout
of
out.
all the office
Those are
laughing
pretty
butts
funny,
off.
though.
So this is what we want to see. You see most of the people,
Finance
they do
player, they look
that
like
in the
bots.
countdown, or they'll do it for a kill cam, or the badge of honor is the final kill cam, and to leave a little mark on that. But here he is trolling campers, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's so awesome because this is a way that you as a player can finally like express yourself, you know, beyond the traditional teabagging or whatever. Like, this is a cooler way of doing it, and it's more entertaining in my opinion. So I'm really happy with this. I can't wait to see some of the new gestures that we're gonna get out to the community.
My favorite is Prosper.
Prosper?
I'm a Star Trek fan, so that's my favorite one to use all the time. So, and there's also kind of a little Easter egg kind of thing that happens in the pre-match countdown. If you're using a particular gesture, which one is it?
Yeah, we just came out recently. If you happen to have gotten the rock paper scissors gesture, it's a fun gesture because when you deploy that gesture, it's random whether you throw rock, paper, or scissors. And I think what people don't know is if you're in the countdown and you face a teammate who has it, you can play rock, paper, scissors together. But what's even cuter than that is that if you win, I think you get like a message saying you won or you lost. I don't know if it's an achievement, but literally it's keeping track, I think, or something. Maybe it's not keeping track, but it tells you, the system tells you won or lost.
Yeah, I mean, I messed around with it the other day, and I never knew that even text would pop up and tell me, like, it was like 3, 2, 1, shoot. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. So, and I don't think we've had anybody in the community point this out yet. There might be, I apologize if there was, but I haven't seen anybody, specifically call that out. So
I don't think so either. Yeah. It's got to happen across someone who actually has it as well as you. And,
right. Yeah.
But now be looking out for that. Now we have a little mini game in the countdown. It's kind of fun.
So I guess for you, do you have any advice for any upcoming animators or anything like that?
Sure. A lot of getting a job in a game studio or any animation studio, a big part of it is not just what you know, but who you know. And for me, as an animator in Detroit, it was very hard for me to make the jump from automotive advertising, which I was doing, to getting into entertainment. So what helped me out was I went back to school. I did an online animation training called animationmentor.com. There's also ianimate.com. If you're trying to get in and you want to learn from people who are actually in the industry, these schools will teach you, and you make connections. And it's actually FaceTime with these people doing it, and they remember you. And I got a break because my mentor was working on Ghostbusters, which I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. I kind of stalked him. I said, if you ever need help, please. And I had to finish the game, and they were working their butts off, and he gave me a chance, and I got to remotely work from Michigan on that game. And having that on my reel, I think, was what the key was to getting out here to LA.
Very
so that's
cool.
my advice.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we are going to transition over and bring in another guest we have, Christina. She is going to be talking to us about motion capture, PCAP, and how that ties into to animation. Something that I think is just extremely fascinating. And we also have some other really cool videos to share with you. So
6-on-6 rock, paper, scissors.
Sounds
amazing.
So welcome, Christina. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
So what is your title and what do you do at Infinity Ward?
So I am the motion capture lead, and me and my team, we work together to both do all the capturing and post-processing of the motion capture in our game.
So what is motion capture?
So motion capture, and we also call it mocap a lot. So if you see that, that's kind of what we're talking about. So basically, mocap is the beginning of most of the animation processes here. We bring an actor to our stage, we mark them up with a bunch of markers, and then we have them do different motions, and then those motions end up in the game.
Very cool.
So, so this is a good example. This is just what our stage looks like, and this is us setting up an actor to get started for the day. So we take him through a series of simple motions in order to make sure that when we retarget all the data to a character, it looks pretty much like what the person was doing in real life.
Right.
And then when we're finished with the data on our end, we hand it off to animators, and then they take it and implement it to do whatever they need to do with it.
So you showed this. We just saw the stage, and you guys are seeing it here. Mm-hmm. What is special about the stage in particular?
So this stage we actually had custom built for our project. Once we came over to working on this new game, what we needed to do was have a stage that would be able to do a lot of performance capture, because we knew there was going to be a lot of storytelling in this game, and we wanted to make sure that we could do a lot of performance capture on this stage. So we had to build our own sound stage, essentially. So it's all soundproofed, And then we also have the motion capture volume in there. So we can do our regular motion capture in there, and we can do our performance capture.
And we can also do audio.
And we do regular, just plain
Basically
audio
a
recording.
giant audio booth, which is really cool.
So it was extremely important to have that to be able to strengthen the narrative within the game.
Yeah, being able to do performance capture, which is where you have, the actor come in and you're recording the audio, the dialogue at the same time that you're also recording facial animation and you're recording the body. You get this really connected performance. You get the exact performance that the actor is giving you, and that goes directly into the game. So, it was super important in order to be able to tell the narrative story that we wanted to tell, that we have this kind of fidelity of performance capture.
So what are we taking a look at here?
So this is actually a sample of even more simple motion capture. This is a day when we were just doing the motion capture by itself with the stunt team. So there's no audio and there's no facial here, but what we are able to capture is a really amazing stunt, a really cool fight. And so this goes into the game and you see, as the player, you would be sitting next to one of these characters in this shot. So you can see it really looks like a real fight because that's how we shot it. Just the way they would shoot a fight scene in a movie. These stunt guys came in and they do a bunch of rehearsing and they work out the best way to do a really good fight scene shot. We figure out where the player is and then we just do that kind of motion capture for it.
So we also talk about performance capture.
Yes.
How are those different or how they tie together?
So as Jason was saying, the performance capture takes that element of motion capture, but then adds on the facial capture
Right.
and also recording the audio at the same time. So we're getting the lines, the face, and the body. So it's essentially like making a film.
And I think one thing that it's important, I think, for players of the game to understand is they're acting, with no set. They don't have that feeling around them that they're on the Retribution or anything. It's all, props sitting in the booth. How does that play into actually the capture altogether? Is that something that's difficult for some of the actors to adapt to? Is it easy? How do you guys go about that, building the
So
set?
It's really cool. What we do in preparation for our shoots is we work with the design team and the animation team to figure out where in the space we want the shot to take place. And then we build exactly what the actor's going to need to interact with in order to make that shot work. So if someone's sitting at a desk, we'll put the desk in just the right place. We'll tell the actor, okay, you come in here, you do your motion here, you come touch the desk here, you have your gun over there. Like, we just build exactly what we need to on set for the actor to interact with. And then we also have a real-time, we call it real-time image of what the character is doing within representation of the set. Playing in some software, so the actor can look at that and see like how they are fitting into the Retribution. Like, even though we might have just some boxes out there to say this is a desk you walk by, but they can look at the software and say, okay, I see these boxes represent my desk,
Right.
and I can see this door is over here based on like how they're looking at what's playing in the software.
They're basically like little kids playing pretend, like that's what it boils down to.
See, that would be
Actors,
fun,
I mean,
too.
this is what they do.
Yeah.
They have to kind of be able to use their imagination to pretend that they're in a space that they're not really in. And we had a great set of actors
Oh, yeah.
working on this game. They did an awesome job, and we just had a blast all working together. It was like going out there and like, I don't know. They just have fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to go over to the studio a couple times when Jamie and Brian were there, and just seeing the camaraderie between those two was amazing. And then even some of the little factoids of Jamie always having snacks, and so that
Yes.
was always there, even on the set. Things like that. It was really, really cool. And so when we talk about the various elements that go in for the actor in terms of the facial, the suit itself.
They say anything about zombies, dude, it's gonna be long.
How
like
long
this,
does
too.
this process actually take for some of the scenes, or an average day? and how much preparation goes into getting the actors ready for what they need to be doing?
So generally at the top of the day, depending on how many actors we have, it usually takes about an hour to get everybody into their cool little mocap suit. And then we put them into the facial helmet rig, which has just like one little camera out here. And then our facial team will adjust the camera until that looks right. And then the audio team will make sure that they have all the sound dialed in that they need. So that all that takes about an hour at the beginning of the day to get ready. And then usually, like, we do really look at it like making a film or a TV show. So
Right.
we have our script and we have our like number of scenes. It's our goal for the day. And we usually would shoot between 6 or 7 scenes in a day, which is pretty fast for a film set. But we have the luxury of not having a lot of setups.
Dialogue.
Like we
Right.
don't have to do camera setup and lighting setup and all
Yeah.
that. Like we just basically need the physical set there, show the actors what they need to do at their physical set, and then it's just playtime, and then they're just ready to go.
So you mentioned, how this is somewhat comparable or different to television. Speaking of Harewood, I believe there's an award.
Yeah,
For hair?
the Visual Effects Society has nominated us for an award for, I believe it's Best Performance in a Real-Time Game or Series. So it's cool because we're up against things like the dragons in Game of Thrones,
Right.
these really serious things from film and television. And it's cool that David Harewood's performance and the character that was made by our character team is able to have enough fidelity that we can compete with film and television for things like
That is
that
pretty
kind of
cool.
award.
That's pretty cool because
Competing against
for
film
me
like
playing
that.
through the campaign and the fans, you're pulled into it. You have feelings towards it. So to see it be compared to things in television, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, this connection with the
Yeah.
characters was really important to us. So the process of creating these character models, we spent a ton of time on this. We took our actors to the light stage and we scanned them. And we scanned them doing all kinds of different facial expressions, and we use that to create a really complex facial animation rig. And then we spend a lot of time with the performance capture, and then it takes a ton of time to process all that data and put it all together. I mean, that amount of effort that we put into making the characters look real it's incredible. But to see it all come together and actually work,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a cool feeling.
Right.
It's really cool.
So here, I mean, obviously we can see the
Yeah.
facial
Yeah.
capture.
So this is the facial capture element. So this is basically whenever we're doing performance capture, this is what we're getting out of all the actors. Each actor has their own camera, and they have this facial data being recorded. And those little white dots help in the post-production process to really get those expressions to be as much as what David was doing on stage. And then this is the final result here. So you can see Jamie was also in this shot. So Salter is there. And then Omar comes in.
Easy call, your captain, mate. Cost us some good men. Didn't have to happen. Not like that.
It's just that looks just like him.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty good.
It turned out really great.
We drove the enemy
So
into
when
retreat.
it comes to
Captain still used to get his men
after
home
you've,
alive,
you've
Staff Sergeant.
filmed all of this, what is the
Always
post-production
Always.
like?
Right. So it's pretty simple. We just take the marker data, me and my team, we just take the marker data, clean it up, then we retarget it to just basically a skeleton inside the software. And then we give that version over to animation. And so then they take that and then they decide what they want to do with it. If we have a big scene with 8 people, then that means animation is getting 8 pieces just from me.
Oh, wow.
Of just body data. And then if there's like any facial data, that's 8 more pieces of facial data that they're getting. And then they're working on that within the animation team. They clean up the facial data. And then they also have an audio element to put in. So at least one, sometimes more than one audio element they have to put in. So they're essentially taking all these elements that we captured together and then making them all work together in post, which is just putting them all together is a lot of work. And then And then going from there, then it will be like, so today I had 5 scenes to do. So it's just a lot of work for them.
So how did you get into motion capture?
Okay, so I went to film school back in Wisconsin. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I was just trying to get work in the industry, working on TV shows or movies. And at that time, motion capture was a brand new industry. Nobody had any idea of the potential of it, and people weren't using it that much. Like, they were just starting to use it in film and TV and in video games. So I actually got hired on at a company that just needed some entry-level people to work on processing data at a service studio. So I got to work on all kinds of different projects, video games, TV shows, movies, and all that
Processing
stuff.
data.
So that's how I got started.
So do you have any advice for the younger generation out there, maybe hoping to have your job one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the coolest thing about go to school for what you want to do, and then don't be afraid to try something new, because one of the things about our generation and all the generations after us is that technology is constantly changing, and what you want to do now might not be the thing you end up doing in 4 years. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you might find something that didn't exist when you started college that turns out to be your favorite thing ever. So you just, the best thing is just not be afraid of learning new things and trying new things and moving somewhere else, and just giving yourself a chance to try try out new jobs and to look into all different careers. I think that's really the best thing you can do.
Well, thank you. And Jason, do you have anything that you want to, any advice out there?
It's pretty simple. If animation is your passion, follow your passion. I think Rob and Mark and Christina have all given great advice. Educate yourself, and take the time to learn how to do what you want to do, and then just go for it. Send out reels to everywhere that you can. All you need is one. When I started in the industry, I think I sent out something like 30 different animation reels. I only got one company to bite. But then once you're in, just learn as much as you can, and you're in for life, hopefully. So.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you guys both for joining me.
Sure.
Thank you.
And so we are now going to bring in
what's next?
another set of folks, Zach Volker and Dustin Kimmick. They're going to be talking to us about some more single-player animation and what they do here at Infinity Ward. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. We can get some questions answered for you guys while we have the team here.
I think it's the first time they've ever singled out
Welcome,
single
guys.
player in the mission. Actually talked about it in depth like that.
So go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us what you do here.
My name is Dustin Kimmick. I'm a senior animator at, obviously, Infinity Ward.
Yeah, I'm Zach Volker. I am the single-player animation lead.
So we've been showing some clips throughout the live stream, and I believe you guys have some clips to share with us as well. So what is something in the process that has just been out of Infinite Warfare been your favorite? What is there any scene or any specific moment that you just kind of hold near and dear?
Well, I guess there's a few. There's a big scene in the beginning of the game where you're launched out of the ship in these moon buggies, and you go through this whole crazy thing. That was a lot of fun. The scene we're going to show today was pretty good too. That's towards the end of the game. I mean, it's just I just like doing big, crazy, set pieces.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah, for me, I think about, it's a very small thing. It's in the moon mission, and when you break the glass and the enemies get sucked out, the decompression, I could do that all day
yeah,
long.
that's
I
really
just
fun.
love seeing guys fly out there.
All right, so we have what's the first video we have. What is the process for your team? I mean, you have you were with mocap and all of that. What does the typical day look like for you guys?
Well, it's a combination of meetings and animation, and then we have meetings to show the final animation and iteration. So it's really work and then show and then tweak and rinse and repeat until we get to a place where we think, okay, you know what, that's good enough. We're going to leave that there. We think that's in a great spot, and we're going to come back to it later if we think it needs any updates or if we have time to do any more final polish.
So this video might be an example of that. What are we looking at here?
So this is like the earliest blocking of this scene in Heist where you get knocked down, you slide over here, and then one of your allies helps you up. And this was like after the first conversation with the designers what the scene would be. So I just put this together as quickly as possible to sort of see if this was going to work. And like in the original version, there was this ship here and then the Ret was going to come in and like shoot it with this like giant beam weapon or something. And so that's what this blocking was.
Yeah, so we thought we'd step through what it looks like to work on a particular scene in single player. And so here we have a blocking pass. The idea was that you're on a ship, or towards the end, you're on the Olympus Mons trying to hijack it, and it takes a big hit and it lists. You slide off and you almost go over the edge, and then as you grab on, there's an enemy dropship there, and it's about to launch missiles into you. And then our Retribution, the good guys, come along and save us by pulverizing and blowing it up. But in true video game fashion, things changed.
Right.
And so this is pretty typical. We work towards building something, and then it doesn't always work out the way we think it will. Story changes, designs change, and so we had to...
Yeah. So here you see, like, with... this version that we just saw, we shot a whole bunch of mocap of like various different actions that we thought we would need. So like sliding, a guy getting, grabbed and hanging, and then, we had the other guy who grabs him, and then, basically all these little individual pieces. And then I think we have another video of like the really, really rough assembly of all of these pieces. I sort of like, put them together, made the timing kind of work, and then, kept it really rough. And that's what this is. You can see it's very, very rough. And, and there's, Salter helps you up, and then you would get control again. And then, but then...
Well, actually, in this piece, one of the things that we did end up changing is here we had Salter rescuing you, and I think we had Brooks or Cash going over the edge, and Ethan rescuing him. So as you slid down, right here, boom, you would say, oh, here it comes, it's going to shoot us. And then you get saved, and you would look and see Ethan doing the same thing that is about to happen to you.
Yep.
So then Salt came and helped us up and says, here we go, we got to get running.
And then basically the scene sort of went on hold, and then a lot of things changed, and we sort of started over. So that's what this is. It's sort of the same like idea of the scene, but we no longer had the ship. In the story, the Retribution never got that weapon, so we sort of had to change the scene, but kind of keep the idea. And we also changed the person who helps you to Kashima to sort of like just kind of keep it a little simpler, and we removed the other characters falling off of the edge. And then this is the next sort of starting over rough blocking that we did. And yeah, and then...
That's pretty rough.
So you can see like... we shot some other mocap for Kashima, and then there's a lot of just hand-keyed animation that we did for the player, and then basically this is ultimately the version that we went with. There were a couple more changes that we sort of did along the way, but nothing really big changed after this.
Yeah. But this is the part that I think is one of the most fun parts of being an animator in Infinity Ward is that. You got to be able to think on your feet, and the opportunity to sit and think, okay, this isn't working.
Right.
How do we bring it to the next level? What can we do? There's story changes, there's narrative changes, there's design changes that require a change in the scene. How can we take what we have and try to push it in that direction and make it better than we had it in the first place? And so this is an example of one of the challenges that we met that we had to overcome. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So here's the final, what it looks like in the game. Kashima boosts over, grabs you, and then we added this giant ship crashing into the building. And then you have to interact to boost up, and then we added the other characters back into the scene, and then shot a bunch of little individual things here. So this whole run is all hand animated all the way through for all of your allies of just their various, you know, interactions with the environment, running forward, and
Yeah. And you know, bringing it back to design changes and challenges as animators that we have to face. In the first pass, we had everyone kind of there getting up at the same time. But in gameplay, that slowed the scene down significantly. You would get up, and all of your friendlies are starting to get up, and you're really not sure where to go, and so you have to wait for them to start leading you forward to figure out where to go. And so we realized, wow, that's really slowing everything down. So by taking the two characters out of the initial scene, and as you're getting up, seeing them already boost and move in the direction you need to go, that keeps the pace moving and doesn't drag the gameplay down. So we're also, as animators, not only thinking about what does the scene look like from a coolness perspective, but also design and gameplay-wise, how can this scene play out better? Is there something that we can change in the animation that would make it smoother, more efficient, and guide the player in a way that is better than he's being guided now?
Yeah, we work pretty closely with design to make sure that it feels good. Because like generally, if you make a scene like this and you just hold forward and you pass the scene, no one will ever see it. No one will wait.
Yeah.
So you gotta you gotta keep it moving. You gotta make sure that the pace of the gameplay feels like the pace of the scene. You know what I mean? So you're not like, oh, I'm playing the game. Oh, now I'm waiting. So we try to, avoid that as much as we can. So yeah.
Well, we're getting a lot of really awesome comments in our chat saying how much they love the campaign.
Awesome.
So I guess a question for both of you is how did you get into
campaign,
your role and what's your background for maybe those who are looking to follow suit?
Closing
start
thoughts
off?
for the game.
Sure. I mean, I've wanted to be an animator forever, since I was like, as soon as I knew I could have a job as an animator, I started just making stupid Flash animations and like putting them on Newgrounds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and and I just animated all the time. And then I went to school for animation, and and I love video games, and I always liked game cinematics. Always seemed like, I remember the first time I saw the cinematic for Diablo 2, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I have to do this. So I've always wanted to get into games, and you just kind of keep doing it, and I don't know. Here I am.
Well, for me, yeah, I kind of similar. I've always wanted to be an animator, drawing since kindergarten. Wanted to be an animator, and then it turned into 3D animation when Toy Story came out, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. Went to school, went to CalArts for a little bit. Eventually quit because I didn't want to be drowned in student loans. And I was able to get a job. Actually, my first job was at Treyarch, working on Minority Report.
Oh.
So that was a while ago. And then really bounced around to different studios, doing some freelance, doing some film stuff. And then was finally able to come in 2005 to Infinity Ward. They were halfway through Call of Duty 2. Mm-hmm. So I worked as an animator for a few years, and then got promoted to lead, and been helping out the SP department since then.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you both for joining me today and sharing all of this, these videos with us. I know I am completely envy everything that you guys do. So thank you so much for all the work you've put into the game. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for coming to check out the animation live stream. We have a couple of things going on today. We have Drop Zone, which I'm sure some of you guys just saw. Yeah. And so keep your eye out for some patch notes for an update. We'll be putting those out later. And keep in mind, we have a live stream next Tuesday. We'll be talking everything zombies. Thank you so much.
Zombies
Bye.
next week on Tuesday.
We sent men beyond our atmosphere, but the open space gave way to an insurgency.
We will break that! Captain's dead.
So who has the con, Gator?
I believe you do, sir.
Salt, you with me?
Always. Captain's place is on the bridge.
Not this captain. Not today.
If you don't make that kind of choice, you have no place being in command.
Turn the ship around!
The pilot of this ship. It's my job to make sure that we get
I gave you a direct order!
Kill them.
You lack what it takes to win this war.
Rated M for mature.
I'm
Get
gonna
Modern
go check out
Warfare
the new stuff on
Remastered in
multiplayer.
select editions.
I'll make a video over it here real quick.